Confession time. Although I claim to be somewhat frugal, there's one spending category where my household spends a lot of money. And that category is groceries. I spend like crazy at the grocery store, and I don't even think twice about it. And I'll tell you why that is. But first, according to the latest report from the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the top 3 spending categories for Americans are housing at 33.3%, transportation at 16.8%, and food at 12.8%. Let's focus on that food category. The BLS breaks this data down even further into average dollars spent. If we look at households that are similar to mine, married couples with the oldest child being 6 to 17 years old, the average amount spent on food is $1,226 per month. That breaks out to $725 spent on groceries and $501 spent at restaurants. For my household, the overall food number last year was $1,175 per month. Just slightly lower than the average, but pretty close to it. That's fine, but I'm supposed to be frugal. So what's going on here? Well, because I track our expenses, I know that last year we spent an average of $940 on groceries and $234 per month on restaurants. So although we spent near the average on food overall, a bigger percentage of that food spending was on groceries rather than restaurants. And I'll tell you why that is, but first I have to explain that I try to spend less where I can so that I can maintain a high savings rate. A high savings rate is important to me so that I can build wealth quickly and reach my goal of early retirement. So there are some areas where I spend very little compared to most people. These are categories like clothing, transportation, and dining out, as evidenced by our 2023 restaurant spending. And I think that dining out is a budget killer for so many people. Households similar to mine are spending an average of $500 at restaurants every month. And actually, I'm surprised at this number. I would expect it to be higher than that. But still, my household is spending less than half that amount. There are 2 reasons for this. One is that restaurants don't bring much value to us. And 2 is that we spend like crazy at the grocery store instead. So let's talk about restaurants. There are times when a restaurant is a great experience. Let's say you're meeting up with family or friends that you haven't seen in a while, and you set up shop at a table somewhere and have a nice, long, leisurely meal. It's a special occasion and a rare event, maybe once a month. This is the correct use of a restaurant. But in most situations, I don't think you should go to a restaurant just because you're hungry. If you're hungry, you need food. And yes, restaurants have food, but they tend to use ingredients that aren't good for you. And in many cases, you don't know what ingredients they're using or anything about the macro or micronutrients that you're getting in that food. You only know the price and whether it tastes good to you. And it will taste good, but not because it's made from good, clean, wholesome ingredients. A restaurant is a business after all, and its priority is profit, not your health. So when you're hungry, you need real, whole, nutritious food at a fair price. You don't need a restaurant. Because here's the thing, a restaurant is not actually a place to go and eat because you're hungry. It's a place to go with friends and family to make memories. So when I'm talking about not spending at restaurants, I'm talking about the kind of everyday or every week dining out because you're bored or because you don't feel like cooking at home or you didn't plan ahead or you just wanted a treat to feel better. That's the kind of routine dining out that you won't even remember at all in a week or 2. And that is the type of dining out that I try to avoid. And this includes dining in at restaurants, fast food, and takeout or delivery. I cut out almost all of that because it's unhealthy, it's expensive, and it's unsatisfying and unmemorable. So instead of that, I spend like crazy at the grocery store, and I don't even think twice about it. Why is that? Well, we humans have to eat. And if I'm not eating food from restaurants and I'm not growing it myself, well, then I must be getting it from the grocery store. And I am. I'm not afraid to spend on food from the grocery store because I try as much as possible to only buy the most nutritious, high quality food for me and my family. With kids, this can be a challenge, but that's the goal. So I'm avoiding processed foods where I can. I'm focusing on real, whole food with the cleanest and most nutritious ingredients. I'm focusing on the perimeter of the store, buying organic produce, especially those that show up on the list of the dirty dozen that have the most pesticides sprayed on them. I'm buying organic or pasture-raised meats and eggs and nutritious seafood as well. I'm buying real food, not because of how it tastes necessarily, but because of its nutritional value. To get the most out of the grocery store, you need to be able to prepare the food at home. It doesn't need to be fancy. You can start with simple meals and simple ingredients. YouTube is a great resource to learn how to cook better, but yeah, cooking and preparing food at home is a must, and the more you do it, the easier it will get. Now, when it comes to what people should be eating and what is actually the most nutritious food that you can eat, there's a lot of disagreement out there. But what most people agree on is that very processed food with lots of added ingredients to improve shelf life and palatability, well, these are things that are best to be avoided. And we should be opting for fresh food with real ingredients as much as possible, because that's the best stuff to put in our bodies for optimal health. Health is even more important than wealth, because if you don't have your health, it's really hard to appreciate other aspects of life. And all the money in the world may not be enough to give you a healthy quality of life once you've lost that health. If you let your health get too far out of control, you could easily end up in a position where you're managing it with pharmaceuticals, and it can get to a point where it's too late to reverse the situation and get back to good health. So I think it's important to invest in your health up front. There's a saying along these lines that I really like. You can pay for your health now, or you can pay for it later. To put it another way, you can pay at the grocery store, or you can pay at the doctor's office and pharmacy. And that's why I'm spending a lot on groceries. But I'm not mindlessly blowing money on things just because they taste good or just because they're expensive. I'm still a little bit frugal, going for the most bang for the buck, while prioritizing the most nutritious food available in the grocery store. I shop sales, browse the weekly ads, and I'm willing to shop at the more expensive grocery stores, the natural grocery stores, and so on. If you shop the sales, these stores can actually be reasonable. But more importantly, the food tends to be higher quality there. And they tend to have a better selection of the most nutritious options, even if they are smaller stores. Like your traditional grocery store may have way more square footage, but if half of the aisles are full of soft drinks and cookies and chips, then the bigness of that store isn't helpful. And I'm also a Costco member, so my shopping pattern tends to start with getting things from Costco and then filling in the gaps with other things that I need from the smaller grocery stores. If there are store coupons available where you can save $5 or $10 when you spend a certain amount, I'll definitely take advantage of those. I've even used Ibotta, which is a digital coupon and rebate app. The thing about coupons, though, is that they're most often available for processed, packaged foods, and these are the types of foods I'm trying to avoid. Still, I have saved a little bit of money over the years using the Ibotta app, and I do look for sales, so I don't completely throw out my frugal ways at the grocery store. Another big way I'm frugal with food is by bringing food with me when I go places. Like if I'm going on a day trip, I'll bring snacks or even a full lunch with me. I pack a lunch and snacks if I need to go into the office, and I always make my coffee at home. I also try to eat a filling meal before I go places. I keep snacks in the car in case hunger strikes. I use all of these strategies to avoid ending up at a takeout window because I didn't plan ahead and got hungry when I was out and about. And the other thing to avoid is food waste, because I know how easy it is to buy food from the store that seemed like a good idea at the time, or because you needed a little bit for a specific recipe and now you're stuck with the rest, or to have food go bad while being stored in a cabinet or refrigerator. But I try to avoid all that by buying high quality food that I know that me and my family will actually eat. And we actually eat leftovers and find ways to use up ingredients that would otherwise go bad. For example, I like to throw leftover ingredients into things like stir fries or chopped salads. So that's another way I try to save at the grocery store, by buying good stuff in the first place and then not wasting it by using up what I do buy. And with those habits in place, I don't feel bad about buying the organic pasture-raised eggs, the grass-fed beef, or the organic produce, or even the packaged food that has cleaner ingredients. To me, that's not the area to cut corners because that would be cutting corners on me and my family's health. Instead, the place to cut corners is by being intentional about what I buy in the first place, making sure it all gets consumed before it goes bad, and by avoiding restaurants, except for those special occasions, to make lasting memories. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this: prioritize your health, even above your wealth. There are so many areas in life with low-hanging fruit where you can be frugal, increase your savings rate, and keep more of your hard-earned money. But don't cheap out on the food you're putting in your body. Food is fuel. Buy the best fuel that you can afford. And if you don't think you have the money for high-quality fuel to put in your body, think about how much money you might be spending at restaurants that could be better used at the grocery store, on real food that could be prepared and consumed at home. Because again, you can pay for your health now, or you can pay for it later. And another thing you can do now is watch this video right here.